of Common Sense America with Eden Cornell. Yeah.
Good morning, Common Sense America. I'm Eden Hill. It's Wednesday, May the 17th. How are you, Eastern North Carolina? How are you, my beautiful United States of America? I am so glad to be here with each and every one of you on this Wednesday morning. You know what? It is Wednesday. Yes, it is hump day, and I've already experienced it this morning, but we are rocking and rolling, and we are taking this country back one baby at a time. Did you guys hear the great news last night that happened in the North Carolina General Assembly? Well, I'll tell you what, you're going to hear it now. It is breaking news. It was all on Spectrum News last night in the controversy of reproductive rights. Oh my gosh. But guess what? Guess what? This is what went down in North Carolina General Assembly last night. I am actually really excited because you know what? We just saved the lives of the unborn. The North Carolina Faith and Freedom Coalition reported that last night the Republicans in the North Carolina General Assembly voted for life when they voted to override Governor Roy Cooper's veto. New abortion limits in North Carolina will go into effect on July 1st. Maybe, just maybe, this state will no longer be a destination abortion state, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, in just a few minutes, I'm going to be bringing over to the show Jim Quick. He is with North Carolina Faith and Freedom Coalition. He is a friend to the show. He and Jason Williams, the executive director, Jason has been on this show before. And Jason was quoted as saying, the legislation passed by the North Carolina General Assembly is a great first step to save preborn lives, protect women, and support families, something that the left does not tell you. And I'm including that little sidebar there. We are grateful for the actions to take North Carolina off the map as a destination for abortion. The North Carolina Faith and Freedom Coalition will continue the work to encourage all families to choose to celebrate the blessing of a new child by supporting our state's pregnancy centers and advocating for the future heartbeat legislation. Wow, what a great morning. What do you say, North Carolina? You should be jumping up and down, and hopefully those who have been elected to the General Assembly are doing the same thing. Much to be celebrated for these precious lives. We have a lot to celebrate. So I am sitting here proud to see the great state of North Carolina, the General Assembly, they have awoken. They're not woke, but they have awakened to taking care of our babies. So Jim Quick will be joining us by phone. I tell you what, Jim has been, I messaged him early this morning. He has been on the road. They were in Raleigh at the state capitol late last night for the late night votes. And he has been, I messaged him. I said, I need you guys on this morning. This is phenomenal. Let's get you guys on. So he will be joining us by phone in just a few minutes. He just messaged me saying he was going to be hopping on. So anyway, I am so excited to have him come over to the show. Also, in the latter half of the show, we are bringing on a new contributor to this show for Young Voices, Miranda Spent. She is talking about the Heartland of America. She's also talking to what is happening to the GOP in the middle of the country. So we're going to be talking with her. She had an article featured in the Daily Caller. So we will be speaking with her, new face, new contributor for Young Voices. And, you know, I was doing a little research on Miranda this morning. She joined the Bullpen on CNN. I'm going to talk with her about that interview. I was proud of her, but I also, you could see exactly what that host wanted to do to her. And I was proud that she sat there and she stood up for what she believed in. So we're going to be talking about that. Our guest that we originally had scheduled for this morning, Brett Oob, was had a late night, early morning family emergency. And so our thoughts and our prayers are with him, but he will be joining us next week to talk about his new book, The 12 Steps to Boundaryless Success. And he is going to be talking to a huge event with John Maxwell that will be taking place in October in Tampa, Florida. So we look forward to having him back to the show next week to talk about his upcoming events. So we have a lot to discuss. You know, a couple other things I wanted to talk with you guys about this morning as we're waiting for Jim to hop on. And that is our veterans. We live here in Eastern North Carolina. It's one of the most populated veteran area in the nation. And our veterans are being dismissed and kicked out by the great state of New York. I do call it the great state because it was my home for a long time. But it's not a great state when it doesn't take care of our veterans. And, you know, if you just Google veterans in New York, you're going to see the news articles if you have not seen them. This morning, I checked in to see what the updates were. And I heard on, I believe it was WABC New York, my radio station, my go-to, along with 990 AM, Philadelphia, and also WMAL, DC. 3 great news stations, conservative talk. You hear the truth. You hear about our God. You hear about our country. And you hear about our families. So I was listening to WABC, and I heard the commentary that even Eric Adams, who was a Democrat, who was the mayor of New York City, has not seen or heard from Biden on this issue. So basically, they're kicking out our veterans out of these hotels in upstate, from what I'm understanding, Newburgh, I believe, to welcome those who are coming across the border. So I know a lot of you have already heard this. You probably don't want to hear the banter and my rant on this, but you guys, we live here in North Carolina. And if you are the daughter of a veteran, the wife of a veteran, the granddaughter of a veteran, and you already see how they're being disrespected across the platforms at a federal level, what are we going to do at the state level? It's state by state. Yes, I get that. But sincerely, we have got to do something to help these veterans. What, we're giving free credit cards, phones to these who are coming across the border, but yet we can't take care of those who serve this nation, who gave us our freedoms. So I'm looking for a couple guests to come on to talk about what the state of New York is going to do. I may reach out to WABC. I may reach out to a couple others. But on that note, we're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to bring over Jim Quick to the show. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining Common Sense America.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, and welcome to Common Sense America. How are you doing, Jim?
I am awesome. It's a beautiful morning.
It is a beautiful morning, especially for the great state of North Carolina.
Indeed it is.
So I shared with Common Sense America this morning a brief overview of what happened last night, where you and Jason have been with North Carolina Faith and Freedom Coalition. Can you give us an overview of what went down last night in Raleigh at the General Assembly?
I certainly can. And so, both chambers, the House and the Senate, elected yesterday to take up the effort to override North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper's veto of Senate Bill 20. And Senate Bill 20 was passed by both chambers to be able to limit abortion at 12 weeks. And so the Senate took up the measure at 4 o'clock and debated about an hour. And then and every Republican voted to override the veto. And then shortly after in the House at 8 p.m., they debated the issue for about an hour and a half. And then every Republican in that chamber also voted to override the veto.
So what happens next? So the veto has been overridden by both chambers. Does this keep us from being a destination abortion state? What's next? Where does it go from here?
So right now, nothing in North Carolina changes.
Okay.
So the same laws that were in place yesterday morning when you and I woke up are in place today. Beginning July 1st, a woman who decides to have an abortion will be limited to do that at 12 weeks, which is basically the first trimester. There's a couple of exceptions in the rule, but they basically, the law will be enacted in North Carolina on July 1st.
Okay. And now that this override of the veto has happened, does Cooper get his grimy hands on this again?
He does not.
Okay.
And so North Carolina law is written so that if 2/3 of the General Assembly decide to override his veto, there's nothing that he can do. And so this is the second time in this General Assembly session where the Republicans have overridden the governor.
Who has been at the very forefront of this in the General Assembly? Has it been Speaker Tim Moore? Who has been at the very forefront of this?
Well, very early on, even last year, there was a number of pro-life groups, Faith and Freedom, the Values Coalition, North Carolina Policy Council. A number of groups began to work on this legislation. And soon after the members of both chambers came back to Raleigh in January, they began to work in small groups. And so we provided an outline, our groups provided an outline to the legislators, and they began to work in small groups and 4 or 5 members. And so they really worked for 5 months on this legislation. And so there's not been really one person that's been at the the cutting edge. Certainly in the House and in the Senate, there were leaders of this effort. But this has been a slow process to build consensus amongst all the Republicans so that when this effort was rolled out basically 2 weeks ago, this was the outcome of all of their work over the last 5 months.
I was reading the release you sent out around, was it early this morning or yes, a couple hours ago. And the interesting fact that Jason highlighted in this release you sent around, in 1995, North Carolina lawmakers passed an abortion restriction into law that required minors to obtain permission from their parents to get an abortion. State Senator Roy Cooper at the time voted in support of the bill. Cooper's position on abortion has radically changed as the Democrat Party has changed. This past weekend, he led the charge to call Senate Bill 20 an assault on women's reproductive freedoms. What do you say to that? The change in the Democrat Party since 1995, or do you see it more as a change in the state? What are your thoughts on that whole statement and that fact?
I believe, our whole nation has shifted radically to the left. Our culture has. I mean, you go back to even the Clintons in the 90s, and I believe it was Secretary Clinton that said, abortion should be rare. And this is not a solution. And now you see almost every national leader, every governor, and specifically here in North Carolina, every Democratic lawmaker voted against this bill, not only the first time it came to the chamber, but also in the veto override. And so, it's just, it is a foundation of the Democratic Party's position right now. Now, I know for a fact there are Democratic pro-life lawmakers in Raleigh. I've talked to them personally, but it is just unconscionable that their party will not allow their members to vote their conscience on this issue.
No, it is unconscionable. Talk to me a little bit about North Carolina Faith and Freedom Coalition. What do you have on your scope for the summer going into the fall? I know you were planning a lot of conferences and you are leading the charge for the great state of North Carolina in so many different ways for the conservative voices. Can you share a little bit about what you guys will be doing for the fall, summer and fall?
Absolutely. And so, we have about 1.8 million evangelical voters in North Carolina that we reach out to. Our primary effort is to educate voters so that they can make a proper choice that aligns with the biblical values. And so we have a number of educational opportunities that are coming up this summer. First, our national conference will be held in Washington, D.C. on June 22nd through the 24th. And so we will have, I believe, every national contender on the Republican side that's running for president will be coming through our conference in the coming weeks. Not everyone is confirmed, but I believe most individuals have been invited, and we're beginning to get those confirmations. And so that'll be an exciting time for people to hear directly from them.
Yes.
And then after that, we have a number of opportunities around the state. We have what's called our Bold and Courageous Tour, and that's where we have elected officials in North Carolina and faith leaders that will be coming to events throughout the state where these are smaller events, 300 to 400 people. Our lieutenant governor is coming to an event in Mount Airy in July. We have former NFL football star Ben Watson will be coming to an event in Gaston County in August. And then in September, our Salt and Light Conference. This will be our 6th annual conference. That will be in Marion, North Carolina this year, September 22nd through the 24th. And those tickets and information on all of these events are on our website, ncfaithandfreedom.com.
Oh, no, that sounds fabulous. I'm looking forward to supporting you however best I can here from Eastern North Carolina, from Common Sense America, and just also all the great things that you are doing for the faith, the faith leaders in this state. I had a great future United States Senator on this show last week talking about the majority, talking about we the people, a constitutional law attorney who's been hearing the voices of the American people in his travels as he runs for United States Senate. And he said, Eden, we the people, we are still the majority. We still, the left, the indoctrinations, the woke cult, we still are the majority and our voices are being heard. And so North Carolina Faith and Freedom Coalition does the same thing in so many different aspects for this great state. But as you canvass to Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, to just really make that impact, that footprint. So for such a time as this, Jim, I am so honored to know you guys. I'm so honored to be able to support you in whichever way we can. And I look forward to seeing you. And thank you so much for what you did in Raleigh last night. Let's make this country and this state even better than ever before.
Thank you so much, Eden.
My pleasure. Have a fantastic day. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
For all of those who are tuning in here at Common Sense America, we were on the phone with Jim Quick, North Carolina Faith and Freedom. Make sure you hop over to their website, ncfaithandfreedom.com, and make sure you check out Bold and Courageous Tour. Check out Salt and Light, which will be happening in September. It is an event you do not want to miss. Hey, and if you're in Virginia or in North Carolina, or if you're coming from Maryland or Pennsylvania, this is an event that so many people from around the country, especially in the Eastern Seaboard, go to Selton Light. So you do not want to miss the amazing lineup of speakers they have. And thanks to Jim Quick, I know that you pulled over on the side of the road in your travels. So thank you. Hats off to you. Hat tip to you for taking the time to talk to us briefly about how North Carolina, come July 1st, will no longer be that destination abortion state in so many aspects. So I wanted to talk with you. Yes, we have a few minutes before we bring over Miranda Spence. She's a contributor to Young Voices. This woman is phenomenal. I tell you what, let me read a little bit about her and just read a little bit about what she is doing in the mainstream media. She was interviewed on CNN in the bullpen or whatever it's called. And the host of the show really dug nails into her. And I can't wait to talk to her about that. She handled it like a champ. But I sat there and thought, okay, Miranda, you are phenomenal, but I don't know if these people even deserve your time, to be frank with you, because they already knew what they were going to say and they didn't care what you said. So we're going to be talking with her this morning. She has a couple articles out, and I want to make sure you follow her. You follow her on Twitter if you have a Twitter account. If you don't have a Twitter account, have no fear. There's many other ways that you can follow her. She has been working. She's at WI Law Liberty. She's a policy associate at WI Law Liberty. She's in Wisconsin. She's a contributor for Young Voices, and she's put out a couple great pieces. And one that really stood out to me is this. It was in the captimes.com, a column that is titled "Wisconsin Activists Push Politics in Classroom." And it has a picture of Dolly Parton and Miley Cyrus on the front. So I want to read a little bit of this article to you because I want to bring this into the interview this morning. And then also, we are also going to talk about her Daily Caller article that just came out, and that is titled, "This Heartland State is Slipping Away from the GOP," and she's referring to the great state of Wisconsin. So we're going to be speaking with her about all things in the political spectrum as her contributor, as she is working in the great state of Wisconsin, hearing about her story and just learning more about her and where she's come from. I'm going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Thank you so much for joining Common Sense. Thank you for your audience support. Thank you for your text messages, your Facebook comments, all of your social media comments. We have so many great things here coming to you at Common Sense America. And I'll tell you what, tomorrow, next week, we have so many amazing guests. And it's because of you. They are coming to this show because you are showing such amazing support here to Common Sense America, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. I am just grateful for each and every one of you. So on that note, we'll be right back. And we're here back at Common Sense America. Thank you so much for joining us here on this beautiful Wednesday, May the 17th. I tell you what, we have so many great things coming to you this week here at Common Sense America. Let me tell you who we have joining the show tomorrow before we bring over Miranda. She's logged on, and if she is available and she hears this, we can bring her on a little bit sooner to join the show. So we have tomorrow, we have Frontline host. If you guys are watching Frontline, they're the host of Frontline TV, as well as best-selling authors of 2 books with Chosen Books, and the 3rd coming out this year, titled Your Mission is God's Army. So we have 2 great guests who have been on numerous and several outlets, including Newsmax, The New American, and more. So I want you guys to save the date. We have Colonel David Giamona joining us tomorrow. And we also may have one other guest in addition to that. But the book is called The Military Guide to Disarming Deception: Battlefield Tactics to Expose the Enemy's Lies and Triumph in Truth. He will be joining our show tomorrow, and he has quite a few books out. So that will be something for all of our military supporters, our retirees out there. That will be a great interview. Also, musical concert pianist Jade Simmons was supposed to join us tomorrow, and I got a message from her publicist saying, "Don't you just love our kids when they tell us last minute that we're supposed to be at an event?" And it happens to be at the exact same time as the show is live recording tomorrow. So Jade, we are looking to reschedule. She may join us on Friday, or she may join us next week. But I tell you what, we have so many fun, great guests happening here at Common Sense America. And, I just wanted to tell you guys this. I do this almost every day now because I love talking to each and every one of you. My passion, my conviction is our God, our country, and our families. And the show was born out of my convictions and my passions to serve this nation. And that will continue here, whether I take a dime or not. And I don't take any money for this. I don't, ask for donations or anything. I'm here every morning, and I get on here about 8 o'clock prepping for the show, and the show ends right before 10 a.m. And I'm just grateful that I get to speak truth, and I have not been fully censored yet. Twitter has censored me. YouTube has censored me. Yes. That's why we have a Rumble channel. That's why I post things on my Eden Gordon Media website as well, just in case we get censored. But the show is for you. And the time that I spend is to serve this nation, to serve my God, and to serve our families. And that's what's so important to the show. The kitchen table discussions, I love sitting down at the kitchen table, having people over, drinking coffee, drinking tea, and talking about what is facing their homes, what's facing their bank accounts, their gas tanks, their supermarket carts. Is it the lack of, because of the current administration and what has been happening? Biden likes to blame Trump for every stinking thing. Well, I'm tired of hearing it. You got to come up with something different, dude. And what was with you holding on to Chuck Schumer's arm in the Senate the other day? Can you not stand up? I mean, seriously, it is elder abuse to see what is happening in our Oval Office. Yeah, I'm sure the Obamas are running the show from their Martha's Vineyard basement or their home on the waterfront in their pajamas, because that's what it looks like. And, I sit here and say, I have friends who I know are being deployed to the border. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and they were talking about the fact that they had to switch things up because their spouse is being deployed to the border. Nevada, Texas, Arizona. And as the spouse was sharing this with billing and medical and getting all the paperwork together, because it is a deployment, a lot of people, they said, "What? Deploying to another state?" And the spouse was like, "Yeah, I get it. The news is awful, but where have you been? Why do you not know that we have major issues at the border right now?" And it really got the spouse thinking about the greater aspect. I mean, think about it. Our military is being deployed to the border within our United States. Has that sunk in yet to anybody? to the greater good of this nation? Has it sunk in? Or, I mean, the spouse who told me this story yesterday, it wasn't just one person. It was multiple people. And all the spouse said was, "What rock have you been living under?" This nation, one nation under God, my husband fought for it. My grandfather fought for it. My father-in-law fought for it. And you guys need to freaking wake up out there. Our country, we have troops going to the border within our country. Does that make any sense to anybody out there? Or am I just, I hope I'm singing to the choir. But I can't help but think I'm not. Yeah, I'm angry. I have a right to be angry. Yeah. Don't hold in that anger, ladies and gentlemen. Get it out. Our country is worth fighting for. Our nation, our borders, our veterans are worth fighting for. Now, yes, these migrants coming across the border looking for freedom, but what are they bringing with them? Drugs? Gangs? Rape? Huh? That's not worth kicking out our veterans out of hotels. I say to the great state of North Carolina, why don't you welcome some of these veterans here that are being kicked out in New York? You're welcome everybody else. These veterans are the ones that are going to continue to protect you. And in case you didn't know, because all the woke ideology out there is destroying this nation, our education systems, our university systems. And you know what? Our recruitment numbers are the lowest they've ever been since before World War II. So what does that tell you? Our veterans are worth fighting for and taking care of. But right now, what does our Department of Defense look like? They're more focused on woke indoctrination and the cult of it all than they are protecting our borders. And so we have our friends and family being deployed. Yeah. Okay, that was my rant. I love this country too much not to fight for it, not to speak up. And I know you guys know that. We need to be on the front lines serving, whether it is active duty, whether it's the reserves, whether it's raising our next generation in their minds to fight for this nation and to know what the United States of America stands for. Not socialism, Marxism, and a communist rule. No, that's not what this country stands for. Hey, if you guys are interested, Stanley Ridgely, who was on yesterday with Brutal Minds, the new book, Brutal Minds, I'm going to give away a couple books. For those who are headed into the university system, in the university system, or graduating out of the university system, and you're interested because you are concerned about what's happened to your kid, or you're concerned and want to make sure your kid has the full armor of God on them, message me, private message me. Send me a note on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm right here. And I would love to get a book in your hands. So on that note, Miss Miranda, I am ready for you. And I know you are sitting there, and I welcome you to the show. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Welcome. It's so nice to meet you, beautiful lady with young voices. You have so much going for you right now. And are you in the great state of Wisconsin?
I am. I live in Delafield here in Waukesha.
Oh, wonderful. Well, welcome to the show, Miranda. I was watching some of your interviews, and I saw your interview on CNN in the bullpen.
Oh, the Young Turks, yes.
And I sat there and I said, oh, I can't wait to talk to her. I was so proud of you and how you stood up to him. But I'll tell you what, I would have come back at him. He was so condescending to you.
I mean, I was watching the show for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I would be going on, and I was expecting it, so it wasn't anything that I
nothing, no shock, right? No shock. Yeah, because it's CNN. What do you expect, right? So, but I was very impressed by how you presented yourself.
Thank you.
So well done. Well done. For you are a new one to my show, Common Sense America. I have a lot of young voices on this show. I had Juliana Sweeney last week. We were talking about education. I've had Gabriella Hoffman, and I think very highly of young voices. So I'm just very impressed with what you guys bring to the table. So let's talk about what you have been working on. Tell the audience just a little bit about your background first, and then let's talk about some of your articles. I've been studying your Twitter account. You have a lot going on. So if you could share a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So I'm a policy associate at the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Marquette University, also in Milwaukee, majored in political science and economics. And then I'm currently doing an online master's program with Norwich University to get my master's in public administration.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the main things going on for me right now, in addition to Young Voices, and then also being involved in a couple other community groups out here in Wisconsin.
What got you into all of this? What was that moment in time saying, this is what I want to do? God has given me this voice and I want to use it. What was that moment for you?
That's actually a really interesting question, because I remember having that exact moment. I literally walked to my parents' bedroom and I told them, I feel like politics is what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. I don't totally remember how old I was, but it was around the 2016 election when everything was, I thought at the time, the peak of polarizing politics. And I felt like it was my calling to be involved and try to understand what's going on, be able to communicate what's happening with other people, be involved in what's going on, making a difference, and also trying to bring people together and trying to build understanding. Mm-hmm. But I had always been involved in politics. I mean, I was 8 in 2008. So sorry, I don't know if that makes anyone feel kind of old.
Oh, no. We're fine. We're fine. Continue. But you're good.
I remember being, watching my parents watch the news and seeing how passionate they would get about the election that was happening. And I didn't understand anything that was going on, but that was I was interested in what was. And it just grew from there. And then, of course, being in high school during the 2016 election was the jumping off point. That's when I really started digging into it, thinking that this could be something I really want to be involved in. And just kind of followed my heart from there. I almost majored in business because I thought that would be a better job opportunity of a major to pick than political science. But I ended up following my heart, and it has worked out for me. I'm very grateful for how it has so far.
No, that's wonderful. Congratulations and well done. Well done. That's really exciting for you. So let's talk about your Daily Caller article. And then I want to talk about your column in Cap Times about the image of Dolly Parton and Miley Cyrus and the politics being pushed on in the classroom. Actually, let's talk about that first, because I have been focusing a lot on education here at Common Sense America. And that's very important to me on so many different levels. So talk to me about that article. What's happening, and what did you see being experienced, the political push in the classroom?
So what happened was there was a first grade teacher who wanted to include the song Rainbow Land by Miley Cyrus for a first grade classroom concert. The lyrics themselves really aren't anything controversial. When I read them, I didn't think it was anything serious, but there is a controversial topics policy at the Waukesha School District where this happened, where the school principal and one of the district administrators decided that maybe it was a little bit too inappropriate for a first grade. They weren't sure how parents would react or anything like that. So they just thought it'd be best they replaced it with the Rainbow Connection, and that was it. Except for the teacher going on Twitter immediately and saying that this was a part of a pattern of attacks on LGBTQ plus students in the district. So, and when you read this lyrics, again, like I said, I didn't think they were controversial, other than the fact that it talks about a rainbow land. I'm not sure what it would have to do with gay rights or anything along those lines. But that's how they spun it. And there has since been a movement with parents, and the ACLU has since gotten involved. Miley Cyrus herself made a huge donation to LGBTQ plus groups to help support students who are facing discrimination. And
Really? I mean, it really got that spun out of control.
It did, and it has died down a little bit since. But the ACLU did send a letter to the school district threatening to basically looking for any evidence that this is true, that there has been discrimination against LGBT students. And I haven't heard anything since that letter was filed. So I mean, it takes time for things like that to work itself out. So maybe that'll come back up in the news cycle once that has been discovered, if anything has. So that's kind of, but they're trying to look for this evidence because they want to get rid of this controversial issues policy. And what this policy does, it prevents teachers from wearing certain t-shirts or any type of clothing or lanyards or things like that with controversial images or anything that could be considered political or anything like that. And then they are allowed to talk about controversial topics. There's just a process they have to go through. It has to be relevant to the class material. They're even allowed to share their opinion about on the topic in the classroom with their students, as long as it's after student discussion has ended, so that they're not influencing the student discussion on those topics. So I feel like, I mean, I'm reading it and I'm thinking it's a very reasonable thing. You know, the school district is perfectly in their right to have that type of topic or type of policy in the school. But they're saying that this policy is the reason that supposedly there's been more discrimination against gay students in the district, which doesn't make any sense. They're saying that there has been an increase in bullying, which there's no evidence of based on district numbers. But even if there had been, why would that be? Because a teacher's not allowed to wear a gay pride flag on their lanyard or something like that. Why wouldn't that be the fault of the anti-bullying policies the school has? You know, that they're still protected under that. And then they're also trying to claim that it's a violation of free speech, which also isn't true, because teachers are federal or just government employees. And government employees don't have the same protections of free speech under the law. The government's allowed to put restrictions on that. And I listed the multiple court cases that there have been at the Supreme Court in my piece about why that's the case. So they're well within their right and to have this on teachers. But then they were also trying to prove that by saying that students have been suppressed, that the Gay Straight Alliance hasn't been allowed to put locker signs on their locker, which is hearsay as of right now. I guess we'll find out through the ACLU letter if any of that turns out to be true. But even if it does, again, this policy only applies to teachers. There is not a student equivalent to policy. So again, that would be this wouldn't be the policy that comes under fire for, essentially. So they're using all these excuses to get rid of this one policy, knowing that if this policy goes away, they'll be allowed to put gay pride flags back in their classrooms or wear political messages on t-shirts. That's their goal. It's not protecting students the way they're making it sound.
Right. Yeah. No, it does. It's so distorted on so many different levels. It sounds like gaslighting is involved. It sounds like there's a money trail involved. It just sounds like there's a lot of under radar things that are stirring the pot to just make it worse versus better and clearing this up. Okay, let's talk about the very heartland of America, the beautiful countryside, the beautiful aspects of America, and that is where you live, Wisconsin, and so many other beautiful parts. I loved Iowa. I loved Indiana. I loved that whole Minnesota, traveling out South Dakota when I was out there on the campaign trail years ago. And so talk to me about this article that you posted in the Daily Caller, the title, and I mentioned earlier, this Heartland state is slipping away from the GOP. What does that mean? What's going on?
So we just had a Supreme Court election race where the Liberal candidate Janet Protasiewicz won over the Conservative candidate Dan Kelly. That was an expected outcome for a lot of reasons, and one of them being that Janet Protasiewicz had advertisements on TV and was doing voter contact before she even won the primary. It was pretty clear that she would be the front runner for among the two Liberal candidates who were running. And she made the whole race about abortion right away, a very motivating issue for voters right now because of the recent decision last year. So we kind of figured that would be a very motivating issue for voters. And the whole race was a referendum on abortion in our state. We do have a 1849 abortion ban on our books that went into effect after Roe v. Wade was overturned. And that is a very contentious topic going on right now, a very big debate.
Of course.
So this was a referendum on abortion, essentially, in our state this election. And a lot of people are blaming the loss of Dan Kelly on that issue. And that's clearly a factor, of course. But the point I'm trying to make in my article is that they shouldn't be so reliant on that explanation. There has been a trend of important GOP voting blocks in our state moving more to the left in their voting trends. There, especially in Waukesha County, where I live, this has been one of the most important counties in the state for a long time for the Republican Party because we cancel out the votes from Dane County, which is where our capital is, Madison. So another very liberal area. So it usually becomes the rest of the state versus Milwaukee and Milwaukee County, which makes our elections much more competitive. So
I was going to say, with presidential, how does that all unfold as well?
Yeah, I'm not totally sure how that works with presidential elections, only because we have only voted red once since Ronald Reagan, which was for Trump in 2016, and every other time we've gone blue. We are a very purple state, that's for sure. But at least for statewide elections, we're typically very competitive, but that's been changing. So what we're seeing in these suburban areas like Waukesha, Ozaukee, is that a lot of these communities are becoming more purple. So you have multiple communities over the past 10 years shifting over 20 points towards the left. So you might, I think it was Brookfield, it was 48 points. Scott Walker won first time around. And then by the time our most recent governor election with Tim Michels, who was the candidate, he only won it by 8, which is a huge difference to make in that's only 2 governor cycles later.
Right.
So there's obviously something more going on here than just abortion. There's more going on here than just Trump, which is another explanation that people tried to.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Trump he did lose popularity among white suburban voters between 2016 and 2020. So that's possibly an explanation. But again, this has been happening since 2010. So before Trump. So there's more going on here. And I think what that is that the Republican Party has gotten comfortable thinking that they have these voting blocks under wraps. They saw the almost 50-point leads that they had in these areas and thought we don't have to try so hard. We want to work in the rural areas, which has been moving more towards the red since then. The shift has been kind of moving in opposite directions that way. So they have been gaining in rural areas, but they've been losing in suburban in that same time frame. So it makes me think that they got comfortable in those areas. And we saw that in this recent Supreme Court race. Dan Kelly only started putting ads on the air 2 weeks before the actual election date, after almost 3 months of Janet Protasiewicz making the entire election about abortion and people reaching out. I followed the ACLU on Instagram, and even they were posting things on Instagram, their national account, about how to support Janet since January. So there's definitely a motivation that the Democrat Party and liberals have to win elections that the conservatives and the Republican Party just didn't display in this election, and they lost because of that, I think.
Well, it sounds like they've become very complacent. And, not just for your state, for Wisconsin, but I've seen that around the country, and you see it coming from the RNC. And I live here in the great state of North Carolina. I grew up in the great state of Pennsylvania. They've all become very complacent. And is it going to take another 2020 to wake the GOP up state by state? What is it going to take? What do you think from your young, very impressionable mind, but very, very discerning in many ways? What do you think it's going to take for the GOP to get out of this rut?
I'm not sure. I mean, part of me, if Trump were the nominee in 2024, I would vote for him, but he would not be my choice. I think that he had his time in 2016, and I think since then it has been a bit of a detriment. I think that really turns a lot of people away from the party. And even though that's not the particular explanation for this recent case in Wisconsin, that is definitely nationwide, and I think in a lot of other places a large factor. I think that they need to. There's been a bit of debate on if we need to focus more on social issues versus the economy. How do we reach voters better?
Right.
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, conservatives have definitely, or not conservatives, liberals have definitely built quite a platform on social issues like abortion. And if we don't get it together as far as what we're going to do with that, I mean, that's a huge pain. Right now in Wisconsin, there's a huge divide in our party, our state party. We have the people who are maybe wanting to have a 14, 16, 12-week abortion ban with exceptions for rape or incest, health of the mother. And then you have another sect who says we don't want to change the current abortion ban, the 1849 law at all. So there's a lot of debate on that, which is why something hasn't been put forward yet in our state to change it. So there's just a lot of things. There's a divide in the party, I think, whether it's abortion, whether that's Donald Trump and what role he should play. And we don't look unified in what our goals are. We don't know. We don't seem to offer a clear vision of what the future of the Republican Party is and what our vision is for the country. And I think that's really hurting us.
So from your generation perspective, and I've been hearing this, I do a lot with Turning Point USA as well. And I've been hearing this from my team members there. And I went to CPAC, covering CPAC. I've done CPAC for 20 some years. So I've seen so many different aspects. But from your standpoint and your generation focus, I'm hearing that it's a divide between Trump and DeSantis. And so what are your thoughts on that? Now, I served in the Trump administration, full disclosure. So I see a man who was strict on policy, especially economic policy and international affairs. And I see a man who I think needs to finish and then have DeSantis come in, because there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And plus all of the Biden stuff that needs to be undone on top of that. From your generation standpoint, what are your thoughts? And you don't have to tell me which way you're leaning, but do you see a divide? Like I've heard Turning Point USA say, they see a divide. It's either Trump all the way or DeSantis all the way, but there's nobody else in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, among my peers, it feels like maybe we're more on the DeSantis train, but not necessarily because of Trump's policies. I think that Trump has just a connotation to him that is, I don't know, I think is harmful at this point. I don't appreciate, like, with the CNN town hall that he did last week, like calling the moderator nasty. I don't think that's a good look, and that's his personality, and we all expect that from him, and that's not a reason that I wouldn't vote for him. But I do think that politics, unfortunately, the way people vote is based on who they like, their personality, how they look like even. I mean,
the look is big.
There's a lot of research and understanding that those are huge impacts when you have someone who, for whether it's deserved or not, the media has made a villain in our country's politics. And a lot of people, even though I'm not against Trump, but I also don't think that I'm not sure that he would win again if he were the presidential nominee for 2024. And I just know that I want to win elections. I want the research that I do in my work I want there to be legislators who are sympathetic to the things that I'm doing. I want to be able to have the ear of legislators who would pass policies that I think are smart. And I'm worried that if we continue down this road of choosing politicians based on loyalty or because they started a job and didn't finish it, which I totally understand. Like I said, I wouldn't not vote for him if he were the nominee. But I'm not convinced that we would win. I'm not convinced that we would continue winning in the future for our ultimate goals down the line.
What are some of your policies that you are very concerned about and that you would hope to see the next Republican president take on?
One of my main issues of research right now is healthcare.
Okay.
In our state, we're actually working very closely with price transparency legislation, trying to get that passed through, which is something that Trump did at the federal level in 2018. I would love to see even more things. There are so many different types of policies and honestly, free market innovations in healthcare that we could help promote and support through our legislation that would help lower costs and make it more accessible, that you don't see happening very much in states or at the federal level. That's something that I would love to see the Republican Party take more of, take more on. So that's certainly one thing. And just general affordability. I mean, housing is expensive, and there are so many free market ways to fix that. With the zoning regulations, and there's a lot of things that we could do, a lot of issues that Democrats seem to have their thumb on, seem to, I don't know, be they're the ones who have marketed themselves as the ones with the solutions, and that's not true. Republicans have solutions too, but we don't tend to talk about it as much. We're so focused on the economy or taxes, and those are important too. But there's a lot of other things that we can be doing, and I'd like to see Republicans doing more of that.
Well, Miranda Spent, I'm so grateful to have you to the show. And the article, this Heartland state is slipping away from the GOP. You brought up and I'm going to leave it on this point. You brought up the point of just a complacency that we are. And I think we are as a nation, not just as a GOP, not as a one party versus the other. And, my monologue and my rant before you came on was we've got to get out of this complacence mindset, because we already have our friends and family going to the border, Texas, Nevada, Arizona, etc. And so we have got to wake up as a nation. We can't be sleeping under that rock anymore. And I think the bigger picture to that is the complacency of you need to get off your tuchus and go vote. And that is, I think, also something that is slipping away from the mindset of American people. I think they've, in many senses, have given up. But on that note, on a positive note, I'm thankful to your generation and what you are doing. You're speaking up, you're speaking out, you're making a difference. So let us know when you have more articles coming out. I'd love to talk with you on more healthcare policy. We talk a lot about that here. And I want to make sure everybody follows you on Twitter. And is there any other locations that we can follow you?
Twitter's my main one. If you want to follow me, I also have LinkedIn, I suppose. But my Twitter is just @Miranda_Spent.
Okay, perfect. Well, Miranda Spent, thank you so much. Have a blessed day. Look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
You too.
All right, bye-bye. For all of those who are tuning in, this is Common Sense America. We are just at the top of the hour. It is almost 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. It is Wednesday, May the 17th. And you heard from Miranda Spent. If you are on Twitter, have no fear. Go over and follow her. But if not, Google her name. Its last name is spelled Spindt, where you can follow her and look for all of her news articles from the heartland of America, and that is Wisconsin. So on that note, I would love to share with you that we are going to be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We will be bringing over two retired military service members talking about their new books. They're going to be on feature next week at NRB in Orlando, Florida. And, we have a lot of great guests coming to you for the next week or two. And some exciting news, but I can't tell you yet. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. I'm sitting here on pins and needles dying to tell you, but it will be coming soon. And I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. Thank you to my audience. Thank you to the Eastern North Carolina area. Thank you to my husband and my family for constantly inspiring me. And thank you, Zabar's, for waking me up every morning with your great French-Italian blend and Zabar's blend. Until then, be strong, be courageous, put on the full armor of God, and make sure you do memorize some scripture, as it is so powerful and potent as we are fighting in that public square daily. And so get out there and let's just thank the General Assembly for voting in the proper direction to save our babies' lives. Until then, I'll see you guys tomorrow.
It's time for Common Sense